how do you know if the Holy Spirit is trying to tell you something versus if it's just my own confirmation bias making me think God is saying something? Well, there's a certain vice when it comes to the spiritual life, and this vice is called localism. Localism is basically the idea that from one's own personal experiences and from one's own affections, they are going to determine cases of conscience. They're going to determine the prudence of certain actions, etc., etc. And it's a very disastrous vice to fall into because you do get people who fall into a cycle of not trusting those external authorities that have been established by God, and in a spirit of pride um, being completely addicted to their own judgment, basically. So the way in which you get around this and the way in which you confirm this good affection is you ask or you compare this subjective sense, you compare it to the objective sources that have been given to you for your guidance. So asking your spiritual director, looking at the examples of the saints, looking at the law of the gospel, that regulates human action, et cetera, et cetera. All of those ordinary and objective sources. Because even if you have this affection, you have this personal intuition that's driving you to do something, let's say that it was actually just yourself deceiving yourself. Well, if you compare this self deception to the objective standards and it happens to be aligned with it, you're good. You're still making a wise and prudent choice. Maybe you did it under the incorrect motive, but you're still making a wise and prudent choice. But on the other hand, let's say something is really from the Holy Spirit and you compare it to those objective principles and you misjudge those objective principles and you see some sort of contrariety. Well, you're going to have a very great merit in immolating your own will, in immolating your own desires, and by the virtue of obedience, submitting yourself to those authorities. And that is very pleasing to God to do that. So, either way, you can't go wrong with following what those external authorities prudently and wisely give to you, if you know what I'm saying. They propose to you, rather.